This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Hey there, it's Brian Sebastian, movie reviews and more. And if it's Tuesday, we've always been giving on Giving Tuesday because I've been waiting for Giving Tuesday all year. So when it comes to that, always donate to your favorite charities because they all need it and it's all important. And it's almost like, let me help Inc. It's like that. So when it comes to this, hey, we're streaming on over 100 outlets around the world as usual. We're in our Rachel, Rebel, Howard, you will like this. This is our 75th straight live show in a row. Going straight to the end of the year as usual. And this is season 4, episode 2. And I've been waiting for this because Johnny's been booked for like 3.5 months, whether he knew it or not. But it was one of these things where Jeremy, I haven't really run into him in a long time, but we kind of first met back in, I want to say late 98 with my favorite drum corps, Santa Clara Vanguard. And it was one of those things, he left a lasting impression. Any guy who wears a kilt is okay in my book because I used to have one too. So when it comes to this, well, yeah, see, since she spoke up first, as usual, all the way from Houston, Chef Rachel Roberts Recipes, and always from Sherman Oaks, California. And she looks really, really good today. Nonstop Terri Marie. You look really good, Terri. Good for you. Howard, Dapper Howard. Now you know why I call you Dapper Howard, because the guy sitting next to you, I feel like we're in the Hollywood squares. Because these two guys, if I can look like them on any good day, that's a good thing for me. So he is that dapper guy. He doesn't look like Sean Connery. Well, he kind of looks like Sean Connery tonight with his hat, what he's wearing. I don't know what room number he is in, probably number 36, but we'll talk about that later. The one and only Howard Wiggins from Brentwood, Tennessee. And so when it comes to Jeremy, so I love I was just on his podcast show last week, and I loved it. It's one of the best 2 hours I've ever done. I really, really like that. I can't stop talking about it. You know, when it comes from Mindful Mutiny podcast, he's a fire survivor. I can't wait to hear about that one. Loves classic cars. It sounds like the dating game, but it's not. But it's one of those things where you could be that transformational coach, that's like a therapy coach, but also, Terri, you'll like this. It's also about overcoming burnout, ADHD, and not being stagnant anymore. We all, I believe, have gone through that one way or another. So the one and only Jeremy Van Wert. So I'm glad to have Jeremy here. So I call him Mr. New York. Johnny didn't know this, but he is to me. I call him Mr. New York because it's always about helping the artists bring their music to the world. And he has done that with a bunch of other things. Terri, remember when we were on a show a couple of years ago? This was Johnny's thing that he did.
Yes.
Let Me Help Inc. And it was one of the best things that we did. Sherry Nelson brought him to us. Eileen Shapiro, love Eileen. Jimmy Starr, Ron Russell. This was important because of the things that he's done in New York, being that entrepreneur, that philanthropist, helping with the Diabetes Society, American Cancer Society. One of my favorite ones, Make-A-Wish Foundation. I love that. He owns his own record company, and you can't go wrong with that. Tribeca Records. And again, Johnny, I had to do this all off the top of my head. So, yes, we're also Libras. September 26th. He's September 29th. And so you can't go wrong there. The one and only SoHo Johnny. He does a lot more than that. He's had some of the best concerts in the world. Some of the best. Great talent on that. And she just popped in. I was waiting for this lady because the same time I was on the show with Jeremy, this young lady, I really like her. International, multi-businesses. She's in the top 10% of podcasts. I really like that. And I connected. I'm like, oh, I got to get to know her because we're in there too, some kind of strange way. We didn't know each other, but we become really, really good friends. And I love what she does as that, let's see this, that neuro coach. It's always about science. It's always about the mind because she's had some things happen to her that she's always overcome. And that's really, really good when it comes to that. So unleash that power within to create the reality that you desire. So are you happy that I remember that, Kara? Because I'm like, this is a great line. I love this. It's almost like Johnny's line. Everyone has a fire, but only champions know how to ignite that spark. And I love that. So I've been waiting for this show for a long time. I snuck Carol in here and Jeremy came in here and I had to have them on. I wanted everybody to meet each other. So with this, let's start with, since Carol popped in late, let's start with her. Let's throw her into the mix first. All right, Carol, tell us who you are, what's about neuroscience and all the stuff that you do, because you're in there, whether it comes from global investments and everything like that. You're really good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's super nice to meet you guys. I'm glad to be here. I'm so excited. I'm a neurocoach, so I use a neuroscience-based process to help you remove your limiting beliefs and wire in your success. Our beautiful brains are amazing, and we really go deep on your identity and being able to have this simple set of tools. And I combine it with principles of wealth because I've been wealthy and miserable, like operating from scarcity, like fear of losing it, just all these decisions were not pleasant at all that I was making based on the limiting beliefs that I had. So I help people to be able to live a fulfilled and abundant life with their wealth and have a process to be able to know how to deal with the things in life that come along.
Yeah. Talk about this. Hold on, Terry. Talk about this. You also have a big, huge subscriber base too. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really excited about the podcast, Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast. And that's what we're into, is helping you become unleashed and unstoppable. So it's something that I'm really excited about. My podcast partner and I, we do interviews and we talk about neuroscience, wealth, and leadership. That's really what we hone in on. Our audience base is female entrepreneurs, business owners. They're in corporate as well, and they're high achievers. They're leaders, or they want to be. So that's where we really hone in. And thank you for being a guest, Brian. I can't wait until your episode airs. Super pumped about that.
That was a good show too, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. I wanted to introduce you to everybody because I love being on your show too. It's the same day that I did Jeremy's show. But you didn't answer that question. You got my attention because you had a huge number. What was it?
The huge number on the podcast is, well, we're actually, our goal right now, we haven't hit it, is 100,000. So we've got a lot bigger number based on the guests we've been having. Guests like you, Brian, with your 20 million plus viewers. Guests like Jen Gottlieb with multiple million followers. Guests like Eric Zuley coming up. So through having these beautiful people like yourself with very big followings, we're growing our subscriber base as well.
Terry, you got to ask a question. Go ahead before I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I just, this kind of stuff is right up my alley. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a fitness competitor. I am a part-time investor, trader. I made myself learn how to read graphs and stocks and crypto and all that. I've had some losses, but it doesn't stop me. I just was kind of, how do you, I think you have to have losses to be successful. I also have a degree in psychology, so I have a little bit of knowledge on that. But I think a lot of times that people, especially when, I don't know, they take risks, that risk falls apart. So how do you tell people, let's say I've made a bad investment, I've lost my life savings, let's say, how do you get up and use that to a positive way to move forward?
I love this question because, that's what happens is we'll experience that, and then you've got two directions you can go, right? You can go, okay, well, I've had a loss, I've had a failure, I'm pulling back now. I'm not going to take any more risks. It's a little bit too scary. Or you can go, how do I turn this around and cause it to be a first attempt in learning and keep moving forward? And so, of course, I'm going to throw in the neuroscience of that, right? The neuroscience of that is we've got this beautiful automated system in our brains, and it's always measuring things. And we've got things in our subconscious that we're not even aware of. And so we experience a loss. And then what ends up happening, what was this? What ends up happening is we get to, decide, do I want to move forward? Do I want to take more risks? Because when we're babies, like, how do we learn to crawl? How do we learn to sit up? We learn by falling over, right? And then somewhere along the way, we get this false idea that everything has to be perfect all the time and successful all the time. And so it's for me, it's really about stepping back into making the decision to take those failures, because yes, I've definitely had them, and say, no, I'm gonna take this and grow and learn from it. And I'll be honest, along my path, I have had some big losses where I've stood back and I've gone, okay, I can't, I'm frozen right now. I can't move forward. So it definitely does happen.
Yeah, somebody said something. I had a teacher that when I was learning to trade stocks and crypto, that said, you when you lose, it's the cost of tuition. So I'm kind of trying to put that in my head with anything that I learn. When I lose, it's the cost of being learning.
I love that. Yeah.
Johnny, do you feel the same way with that? Because you know what it's like to do all of that, on the real estate side of things. I've never met anybody like you who's doing all of these things like that, especially in New York.
But my background is going back several generations. My family is in Soho, which is why I had the nickname SoHo Johnny. I named the entertainment company that. But I've always kind of been, I was always a nervous kid when I went to school back in the day, and I always channeled that energy to try to do something to make people laugh, even as a class clown when I was a kid. And, in generating, just being brought up in the city, I've always been on the side of entertainment. What I mean by that is, in real estate, like I would rent out a place. Like in 1985, I rented Grace Jones, her restaurant, right? And, I dealt with Grace Jones. Andy Warhol would be upstairs. And this was like a small little property where my grandfather started in the country. So I always had that connection, but I never really stepped over. So I think that's kind of the genesis of where I came from. And then it just, over the years, just connecting it and doing charitable events, and still, it's still 9 to 5 guy. I never was a 9 to 5 guy, but always still, always just hardworking. Listen, good working hard is, and having something to do every day is the best therapy. Okay. As long as you're doing it with a humanitarian thought with people around you.
And Jeremy, so you lead into that too. You worked a lot with kids. You started, it's almost like you reinvented yourself. Talk about what you're doing now, because we were talking about a little bit before we went on, and you caught Johnny's attention in a different way.
Well, so I'm listening to this conversation as it's going on already, and just Carol and Terri and SoHo Johnny, the things that you've already talked about with regard to reinvention and, having that mindset where you're just unbreakable. I think that's a word that you might have used, Carol, that whole concept of just really, nothing's really ever going to get you down. So right now, I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist in California for 15 years. And I've expanded that out into doing the life coaching thing, specifically because I've risen in the ranks through kind of corporate America and made it to a high position at a company. And what I constantly saw is just exactly how profound an influence that you can have as a manager when you believe in your people, when you work on them as human beings and you see them as their value beyond their space in your company, and you see them blossom, and you see how much they reciprocate. They will work so much harder for you if they see that you see them as human beings. And that was always my philosophy. And so as I am now doing this whole reinvention of myself and getting in full time into the coaching, that's where I'm really hanging my hat, because you go to school, you graduate, you get out into the world, and it's not as regimented. It's not as scheduled as it was when you were doing, soccer and marching band and then study hall and everything like that. You get out into the big world and you don't have a schedule. It's not as clear what to do next. And so what I work with people on is building, the same way that you would for a company, a strategic plan for your life. What are your values? What are your goals? What are the personal roadblocks that keep you back? That's a lot of what you were talking about, Carol. And getting clarity on where a person is going and building in sustainability and accountability, because people who have burnout, people who have ADHD, people who have just basic stagnation are really struggling with, I don't exactly know where to go in my life. And if you can be unbreakable and reinvent yourself over and over, it is the most powerful of the characteristics that you can have in your life and in your career. And you had mentioned at the beginning of this, Brian, the fire that had infected my area. For those of you who don't know, I live in a little tiny village in the Sierra Nevadas, and there was a big fire last year called the Mosquito Fire. And that fire was started and was all over my house within an hour. It climbed a hill from a canyon, came into my town, and out of 29 homes that were in my little village, only 19 ended up surviving. And so it was a major deal in September of 2022. And I mean, it's hard to explain the grief, the pit in your stomach, the feeling of everything's lost, the fact that everything behind me and everything in my office, it's all gone probably. And for about a week, I didn't know if I had the house that I'm sitting in right now. And oddly, I had this kind of feeling of, you know what? This is the easiest reinvention of my life. I get to move wherever I want to now. I get to go wherever I want to go. I can move to any state that I want to. I can start over and reinvent in the way that I want to help other people reinvent. And luckily, my house is still here. I'm very thankful about that, even though there are other people who are not as fortunate as my wife and I. But just that sense of being able to reinvent truly from the ground up, because this fire, the houses that it demolished, there wasn't a single toaster or earring left of these houses. And it was absolutely horrendous. But, being able to just go, okay, that was a hard blow. And I have everything I need in here to build it all back up again. So that's what I'm doing. That's kind of what I'm about, Brian.
Hey, Rachel, you invented yourself on your coffee talk today, which I liked. You were talking about your yearbook. You're not sure where it was, and I called you. I said I lost my yearbook in the fire. We wanting to reach out. You're remembering people and things like that. Talk about that, because that was really important, and I really liked that this morning. Oh, we might have a delay on Rachel.
You like that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
talk about that.
Yeah, I was, those nights when you dream and you have these you have these really good dreams. I was dreaming last night about all these old people that I haven't seen since high school and middle school and even elementary school. And I woke up smiling, and I woke up wanting to find my old yearbooks, because there were people that I saw and I couldn't remember their names. And it was just I don't know. It's it brings you back. And this morning when I did my coffee talk, I was like, yeah, there is some people out there. I named some people, And I was like, if you're out there, and then I was talking about like my principal from when I was like in second grade, and I was like, and she was old when I was in second grade. This lady like had the like old lady hair, and I was like, she's gone to see Jesus a long time ago. Oh my God. After coffee talk, I had like all these people come in and they were like, oh, Miss Ewing is still alive. I was like, oh shit. I mean, it's just so funny. Like, I don't know what touched Brian, but sometimes, when we're dreaming at night, we touch people that we haven't seen or talked to in so many years, and it just brings you back. And then you wake up and you're Is that what you were talking about, Ben?
It was, exactly. And so, Johnny, when it comes to this is one of the reasons why you did let me help. That's why you did let me help Inc. and everything like that, and putting on these great concerts and bringing these artists together. It's important to talk about why that's important, because it was really good.
It was a way of connecting. I'm not going to call it a need in myself, but also it was a way of connecting my love of music with so many of the music is a companion that takes us through our life, and charity, which is an enhancement of our souls and spirituality and connectiveness, and my love of performing. Okay, I'll get on the stage, I'm animated, I'm having a great time. And when I mixed in charity with all these things, and I met so many beautiful people, that was really the aha moment for me. And I learned, and the reason why I did a foundation, because I used to do a lot for American Cancer Society, because my dad died from cancer. So that was kind of like a typecast charity for me. But there were so many other great causes out there. And I realized that with a foundation, and you don't own a foundation. I'm the founder, but there's a board, and you don't own it. It's a public thing. You could do different events or raise money for different types of causes. It doesn't have to be pigeonholed just for one. So letmehelpinc.org was formed, and we had a lot of fun with that, and so many people, when you are involved with charity, besides the old saying that to give is to receive, and you feel good about yourself, but I made so many beautiful relationships, and it was so daunting. I mean, our last show, I think, was a stream show, probably about maybe 6 hours, and I hosted it. But we were interacting with, I don't know, something crazy, like 35 countries. Okay, radio stations from Australia and India, Shares for Cares from India, and we had these performers come and do performances. Celebrities from different countries that I didn't even know, but celebrities in their own right, and big in their country. And we did a show, and the very fact that we were able to pull that off, okay, because this is all volunteer, okay. So if I have to say, I again, there's so many people, like you mentioned, Eileen, John Valesco, all these different people that as well, Brian, around me, were able, through all circles and different circles, and people joined the bandwagon to try to do something good. And we raised some money for, I think, woman awareness in India. I think it was prostate cancer, and I'm probably getting the different shows mixed up. Anti-bullying, I'm sure, and different shows we've had, like Jeff Goldblum, Ozzy Osbourne come. Paul Anka gave a shout out on that show. And that's just domestically, and different genres of music. So it really is, I mean, we're talking about, if there's one close, I'm trying to find the knit between this whole group here. And I think, I would say, we're all evolving body, mind, spirit, and soul, okay? And we're constantly changing. And there's so many different ways to enhance our limited time and experience here. Never mind talking about after what we die, that's faith and everything. But there's many different ways of enhancing it, okay? We talk about mushrooms, different therapy, whatever we can make our body physically work better, but also our mind and spiritually, such as some of the conversations we're having here, okay, and improving that. So we're going to work more efficiently, but certainly charity, okay. If you wake up with the right mindset, it kind of it's another thing that people, I'm not saying potentially take for granted, because everyone's caught up. We have to make a living. You get caught up in life, and you don't think about these things. You don't take. So many people live their lives and don't take time to smell the roses. I mean, let's face it. You know, you're caught up with conformists. I was that way first half of my life, like I said before. So I said, let me go over to the other side and say, realize, you know, every day that goes by in my life, like many of us, realize how thankful we should be for being here and people less fortunate. The greatest sign of intelligence, okay, is the realization that there's so much we don't know and so much we'll never know during our lives. So we're human, we're imperfect, but making connections with other people, and no matter what it is, doesn't matter what you have or don't have. It could be a simple thing as just making somebody smile on the street. Just that little bit, if we all did it, like today's a special day, it's a giving day, you know, that makes a difference. I mean, we talk about the world having its troubles and these wars and all this craziness going on, but there's so much potential, and there's a lot of it being done now, don't get me wrong. But of course, you know, you don't hear about it in the media as much because, you know, it's not as interesting. It's a shame, but there's so much good being done as well that has to be foretold. And, you know, I think we're all responsible to be inspirations and kind of role models to each other in this regard. And I think that's a little bit of a common thread I could see from having the pleasure of meeting everybody on the show today.
And Howard, you reinvented yourself too, and you have that great attitude. Talk about that.
Many times I've reinvented myself. You'd be amazed when I lost 100 pounds years ago, and that touched a lot of people. I inspired a lot of people when I did that. A lot of people say they want to be like me when they get older. Brian always tells me, you never know who's watching, and you don't know who's watching. And every day you affect people that you don't even know you affect in your life. And the one thing that comes up to mind is you can tell a child something. One child will hear it, and the other one could change their whole life because of it. So it could be a simple little thing, but it can affect you for the rest of your life, whatever you encounter or whatever you hear. So I think it's very important because we don't really know how we affect others, but we truly do. Yeah,
Exactly. And then so when it gets to like that, Carol, you talk about these things like that, going into neuroscience, right?
Yeah, definitely. I can so resonate and see the common thread between what you've said, Johnny, and what you've said, Howard. With I was just having this conversation with my family last night that it's my core belief that we are spiritual beings in physical bodies. And now if you come at it from the quantum realm, even our mass, what we perceive as physical, is really moving energy. Everything is moving energy. So the lens that I tie in with what you guys have said is that we are affecting people all the time. And I think right now in the world that's more needed than ever, because sometimes we can feel very powerless, or we can feel that, you know, we don't have an effect with the wars that are going on, for example. And we do, simply by taking charge of our own identity, keeping our cups filled, being in that positive energy. Then when when we've got a full cup, and when we're grounded in our identity, who we are and our value, then we're able to spread that to others and have an effect, even when we don't realize we're having an effect, even without a word, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, that may not be strictly from a neuroscience aspect. From a neuroscience aspect, I'll just quickly say that we think of that as just a thought. And if you just pause for a moment, every single thing on this planet started with a thought, with the exception of nature. There isn't anything you can't look at that didn't start with a thought, with the exception of nature.
It's excellent.
So,
Excellent.
but it isn't just the thought. Neuroscience is the study of the entire nervous system, and the brain is a part of that. So we're integrated beings, and it was JFK that said a rising tide raises all boats. And so when we go to work in any one area of our life, we elevate all areas. We're working body, mind, spirit. We've got a heart brain, a gut brain. We've got part of our subconscious is housed in our bodies. We've got neural networks in our bodies. Some of our neurochemicals are made in our guts. So looking through the lens of integration, how important it is when we connect in these ways and we affect one another because we're leaning in and investing in ourselves and taking care of ourselves, I think is really important to bring out.
I think you brought up an excellent point, Carol, in that when we try to put light out, we call it light or goodness or just good-naturedness out into the world, we don't see the effect of that many times. You don't see, it's not like a return on investment you see. But in the grand scheme of things, it does make a difference. We may not feel it, okay? And then, you can say, what is the most, when you're on your deathbed, what is the most important thing? Now, of course, just put our faith here, okay? And afterlife, all our beliefs, okay? But still, I would want to be thought of, not because, oh, I have this tangible or that, okay? But, just how many people would think kindly of you and say, or think of you in a loving or some way. If there's anything that you could take with you, you can't take monetary things with you, perhaps that is what will elevate us, okay, when it's time. But we won't see that necessarily now. We won't see the effect of improving someone's mood or trying to give to somebody or whatever. We won't see that right away. It's important to recognize that we're not supposed to see it. It's not like a tangible thing, but it counts.
Rachel, when you started, and Terri, I'm coming to you in a minute. Rachel, when you started Coffee Talk, did you know you were going to inspire and energize a lot of people getting up? You just wanted to come on and do something different. And all of a sudden, you've kind of built this fan base, which will still grow.
Yeah, I've got the local news coming in on it, and I had no idea. When COVID was happening and we were like hunkering down, not leaving our houses, I needed to stay connected with other people. And so I would turn on my camera and I would, connect with people. We would do like these little prayer things and all sorts of stuff. And Coffee Talk just kind of came out of that. It'd be in the morning, I'd have a cup of coffee, and next thing you know, like we would have all these people coming together and we'd all be doing Coffee Talk. And that's how it started. And now, like I said, it's growing and growing and growing. And now I work with the local news people and all sorts of stuff. And, it's funny how things like this come about, but it's a need to be connected and to come together. And I think, that's what happens.
And Terri, you're always in it to inspire other women over a certain age of what you're doing, whether it's on the fitness stage, whether it's working out or anything like that. You might be on mute. Yeah, you might be on mute. Ooh, oh.
I'm not on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't on mute. I'll answer that, but there's some questions. I'm going to answer that, but I want to ask a question to Carol because I think this is a question that people struggle with, but they don't know how to ask it. I my whole life had a tendency, and I know this is I got to rewire my brain, and I try to do stuff, and then I'll have those haters in the background that are telling me you're not pretty enough, you're too old, you're stupid, because I have these, and everybody has them, and sometimes it's even your family members that aren't cheering you on, and sometimes it's the people you expect to cheer you on that are like, you're an idiot, you're ugly, you can't do it. So how do you shut those off so that I can focus on the good that I do instead of picking on myself and not really truly accomplishing what I really want to do because I'm getting down on myself with those negative thoughts? Does that make sense?
It does, totally. This is all about what I do. So we've got this beautiful subconscious automated system, and over 90% of our limiting beliefs that you're hearing, that inner critic, happen between the age of birth and 8 years old. And it's very interesting because then we grow up and we've got this stuff wired in. And, the amazing thing to me, I got this from my mentor, and it really just cracked my mind wide open, if you will, haha, right? But we don't look at a baby in a crib and go, oh, kid, you're not valuable yet. You're not doing anything. But while we're growing up, we all of a sudden get this idea of performance-based acceptance and external validation and all these messages that get wired in, and then they're stored in our subconscious. And it's just like me breathing right now. Like, I'm not sitting here going, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out while I'm talking to you. It's just happening naturally because it's wired into my subconscious. So then what your brain does is your brain wants to keep you safe. And the way that your brain wants to keep you safe is by keeping you in the familiar. So you've got these negative messages that are coming. I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not loved. I'm not safe. And, you don't hear them in that way. You hear them as the negative Nelly in your head telling you, you can't really do this. And so that's literally your brain trying to keep you back in the safety zone while you're trying to move forward and grow and do new things. That's why growth is so uncomfortable. And so how do we rewire that, right? Well, that's what I teach, is a very simple 4-step process that gives you measurable, tangible results to literally remove those old neural networks and wire in brand new ones. Now, this doesn't mean there's going to be Shangri-La and you're never going to hear that negative voice anymore. Why? Because the brain's doing its job by keeping you safe every time you go to up level, right? So you're going to hear the resistance every time. And that's where you can have a set of tools that will walk you through being able to know how to handle that and move through that resistance.
And then along with that, just kind of add to that, and I don't know if other people will experience, I'm sure other people experience this. It doesn't matter how old you are, there's always going to be bullies that are going to, for some reason, do whatever they can to get in your way so you can't be successful. I don't know why people act that way, because I personally think there's room for everybody to be successful, but there's just people out there that are that miserable, I'm going to say, because they're deflecting their own misery on you. That's where I suck in that toxicness and focus on this person that's trying to make my life hell, where I need to not do that. So I guess that has to do with the childhood rewire. It all has to go with everything, correct? Because it's just triggering that.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, you can go in different directions with that. You are the 5 people that you spend time around. So who are you spending time around that's bullying you? And in my experience, when you're grounded in who you are, when you're grounded in your identity, then you can face a bully and a bully will shrink. That's what happens when you typically face a bully. It's so counterintuitive. Like, you want to shrink back and, maybe run or hide. But when you can look them in the eye and call them out, quite often that's the most effective thing to do.
And Johnny, you had a concert on that, if I remember correctly, on anti-bullying. Talk about that, because that's where everybody jumped in, especially during COVID, if I remember correctly.
Right. That was 2020. We had a very high-ranking stream concert then. And I believe
Uh-oh, he froze.
Yeah, some freeze.
And so when he comes back, that concert was worldwide and was great. And go ahead, Johnny, go ahead. We lost you for
I
that.
was just saying, just a signal. But yeah, anti-bullying was one of our causes for that concert. And a lot of people came out, you know. Well, I mean, we had footage from, like I said, many different celebrities that came out. And it was, and there's a lot of, you know, people don't talk about their experiences, okay? Especially, you know, when we're young in school, you know, and, you know, we're talking about influences, how negative influence of things enter our mind today. But let's also talk about when we're younger, when things that stay in us from our upbringing, okay? And I don't, you know, I'm not going to say negative, but let's just say restrictive things. That's a self-restriction. It doesn't really exist, but it's in our mind. And we constantly have to remember and identify it for what it is so that we can go through it, whatever barriers of limitation. Because the limitations we have are self-limitations that we impose upon on each other. I mean, listen, we can't lift 1,000 pounds, but I'm talking about as far as what the mind could do. We don't limit things that we're just limiting ourselves to think that we can't do. We can. And a lot of those things are from our upbringing. You know, we have to unshackle those chains. In order to do that, I mean, they always say, face your fears. But anti-bullying, I mean, you know, a lot of it went on when I was a kid in the 60s, 1960s. Growing up in that Bronx, I could tell you that. But there's awareness now, and there's just so much good out there. I mean, if there's one thing I want to say about Give Back Day, is that I think it's important to give credit to a lot of people that don't get credit today for what they do, okay? Because there's just too much negative news out there, and it shouldn't be that way.
Jeremy, give your last feelings of what you do, how people can reach out to you, and talk about your show real quick. Go ahead. And social media links.
No, absolutely. Number one, I just really wanted to circle back around Terri and Carol about this. You were talking about this first 8 years and how profound that is and the self-concept of a young person. I'm busy writing a book, and so I've had to go back in my life and talk to people. I talked to my mom about me being an ADHD kid early on, and she just said, as soon as you hit school, you went from a happy kid to a miserable kid. And she said, I just didn't know what to do. And it was the ADHD brain has a really difficult time in the institutional model of learning, and they tend to get bullied a whole lot. And, you know, in my case, my mom didn't quite know what to do. But when you're talking about bullying, Terri, you're talking about those old wounds getting hit throughout your life as you keep going in life. And if you don't like change those neural pathways, like you're talking about, Carol, that stuff absolutely just keeps being something that triggers you and brings you down. And you had asked me, Brian, about what I'm doing. I have a podcast called the Mindful Mutiny Podcast. It's on Apple and Spotify and YouTube. You can find that there. I do transformational coaching. You can find me at jeremyvanwert.com. And my practice is growing.
Carol, social media links and how people can reach out to you, what you're looking for your next guest.
Reach out to me on IG at NeurocoachCarol, NEURO Coach Carol, and Facebook, LinkedIn, Carol Register. I also have a coaching practice and have some amazing programs available. And as far as my next guest on the podcast, we're booked out through May. Just DM me and let's start a conversation and make sure it's a great fit, and we'll have a lot of fun together. By the way, I have been listening to Mindset Mutiny, Jeremy, and love it. So I want to give a shout out. For sure. It's a great podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Howard Wiggins, talk about event coming up in Tennessee that you're taking Linda Epton to. And I don't know if you're going to
Yes.
Acton. Go ahead.
Holiday Fest. I'm going with Linda Edgen to that, which is she's the leader of National Women Film and TV. But I did want to say that you are what you create. If you have people that are negative around you and you stay around them, that's going to bring you down. You go around positive people. Put yourself in the situation where you're away from that. Because I truly believe that you're your master of your own fate. And whatever you don't like, you have the ability to change. And it's kind of like a group of alcoholics sitting around and they kind of just feed off of each other. You've got to admit to you that you need to change those people, get around better people, and your life will change. I mean, I'm a true believer. I believe that stress causes everything. It causes sickness, it causes unhappiness, it causes everything. In any stressful situation, I'm going to run because I'm not going to allow it, And if people hurt me in my life, you're done. It's over. It's like I have the power to just drop you, family or friends. It doesn't make any difference because you are the people that's around you. So,
Rachel Roberts, social media links.
Rachel.
Can you hear us, Rachel? Social media links. She might not be able to hear us.
Yeah. Okay. At Rachel Roberts Recipes. No, I can hear you. Okay. Rachel Roberts Recipes.
Okay.
Yeah, every morning I'm on Coffee Talk. I love you, Howard, Terri, Brian, and all our guests. Thank you for being with us. Yeah.
Terri, social media links.
At Rachel Roberts Recipes.
Nonstop, Terri Marie on all platforms, and then terrimarieofficial.com is my website.
And SoHo Johnny, before we give you the last word, I want to just show the link for Dream Arts. And since it's Giving Tuesday, please support and always give. And it doesn't have to be just this Tuesday. It can be every day. And Carol, thank you for donating to Dreamweaver Arts and the Artist Ranch. And this is our trailer for everything. And Johnny, you get the last word with this before I mention the movies, inspiration, and what we kind of been talking about. Go for it. And talk about Tribeca Records real quick.
Well, I think I'll just start on the real estate end, PEP Real Estate, PEPrealestate.com. We have some great locations that we do long or short-term leases, and we do a lot of pop-ups for events that people want to come and fashion show or for the movie production industry. We're always renting, finding locations for the downtown. Naturally, if they have a celebrity that gives a shout out or helps raise money for LetMeHelpInc.org, our foundation, then a lot of times we can almost practically give them an event for nothing. TribecaRecords.com. And by the way, you can John at SoHoJohnny.com, JOHN at SoHo Johnny, SOHOJOHNNY.com, rather than have all these different emails out there to reach us. But TrebeccaRecords.com, we've got some great artists, like you mentioned, the iconic genius Randy Edelman, who did the music score for, I think you had him on your show, for so many movies I can't even get into now. And he continues coming out with another great album.
Wow.
TrebeccaRecords.com.
Hey, and with that, I got to mention 3 movies. So if you're that Yankees fan and you need in New York, Yogi Berra, it ain't over. It's not about the Yankees per se. It's about everything this man created. Very, very good. Very inspirational. He wasn't supposed to be able to do anything. He has those yogiisms. And, you've got to see that great film on Netflix. Also, the Tyler Perry movie, Maxine Baby, the Tyler Perry story. Always talking about what we went through, the abuse that everybody went through. Him, Sly Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, they've all gone through this. But their stories are being told, but the scars don't always heal. But they're alive to talk about it, and that's the most important thing. So I got to thank everybody for being on, and I got to say this. Have a good night tonight, a better day tomorrow. If you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours because the world really needs it. I'm Brian Sebastian. This is Movie Reviews and More, and we will see you next week.